Not exactly hidden. Baroness Uthtir moans a little in her sleep and shifts. She's comfortable and knows the smell of this room, old tomes and an ancient Paratac leather chair. Did she doze off in her sanctum? She stretches somewhat and cracks open her eyes. On the podium is one of her mother's favorites, and it brings a smile to her lips about happier times. Times where she wouldn't so much be on the chair, but her mother's lap, as the old knowledge that others have forgotten is given to her freely. The warnings of old, where so many forgot that the sorcerers, as darkly handsome and intense as they can be, how they were all barely tame monsters. They were broken children chased into the darkest places upon Cerbo to re-emerge as forces of nature with a great bloodlust and grim purpose. How easily people forgot just how dangerous they are, how deadly a sorcerer could be. She wakes up a little more fully and sits upright a little more. She apparently hadn't sat properly and was on her tail a little. She looks to the right and freezes. Her blood goes cold at the unassuming figure wearing dark-leaf vines and robust green clothing. Glass lenses partially conceal his eyes, and from his hair are no horns. This is no Apuk, but this is a sorcerer. She is as still as she can be, terrified of somehow offending this walking nightmare inside her most private and personal sanctum. "Calm down," he says, and how can she? She remembers him now. An attack on Nodok. It had been so simple earlier with, "Breathe," the sorcerer instructs her. She just stares at him. "Baroness Uthtir, take a breath before you pass out again." She does so. It takes her a few minutes to calm down a little more, an especially hard task with an alien sorcerer watching her. "You're Koga, yes?" she asks after a bit, and he nods. "You can relax. Passing out and the panic attack told me quite a bit. What do you want?" "I want to know who would benefit from you being hit by a sorcerer in 5 to 10 years. Someone tried and failed to frame you for the attack on Nodok," he says, and she thinks. It's easier to focus her mind if she keeps her thoughts away from the sorcerer in her ancestral sanctum and more on the subject of her lands and peoples. "How many?" she asks. "I was only just barely made aware of a power outage in the area. According to Vernon, there were just over 7,000 people killed last night. That includes civilians, the local guard, and the enemy combatants. About 50 of those people was my personal contribution to the defense of the town," he says, and she looks at him again. 50 people. 50 people casually killed by this alien sorcerer, and he's in the room with her. "Calm down," he tells her again. "Look, I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. I did very poorly on my interrogation training." "What do you want?" she asks, and he sighs. "I want a suspect list. Someone's trying to pull a fast one with the lives of innocent people, and they need to be reminded that actions have consequences." "What happened?" "At 8:14 last night, a large military force cut the power to Nodok. This force had your symbol emblazoned on them but started cutting through your town and people. The local guard put up a fierce but slowly losing front to defend the people, but all roads were cut off with the jump pads structurally compromised to the point that those that tried to leap away ended up snapping their ankles." Koga explains, and Uthtir just stares at him in despair before looking away. She should have done something. At about 8:30, we don't have the exact time, a young teenager by the name of Kals Tarn was given an opportunity to run, which he took at the insistence of his family. The unspoken acknowledgement was that he would never see any of them again as he made his way to the dark forest. It took him an hour to arrive. Once he got to the forest, he was immediately noticed and within 5 minutes was safely within the hidden village of sorcerers. "You have a village." The Empress of Cerbo reached out her hand to humanity to try to take advantage of the fact that humans were the first non-Apuk race to produce a sorcerer. It is her hope that sorcerers are brought more in line with the modern romantic view of them rather than the much bloodier truth, Koga says before smiling. Our answer is to rely on the ancestral wisdom of my own family to add to sorceress power in order to give it some discipline and focus, a sense of community and loyalty. I see. So you're trying to make sorcerers more gentle? Somewhat. There are issues with it. But the important thing is to get on events like this early. Kalstarn has been wronged. Much of his family is dead, and what remains is wounded and traumatized, including him. The very nature of sorcery means that he wants revenge. He wants revenge on someone that tried to use you a lightning rod for his wrath, which means that we need to find out who or what would benefit from a sorcerer hitting you. She takes a deep breath. She is not ready for this, and after, she pushes it from her mind. Mourning or lamenting over the dead and gone will not help, and she needs to be a woman, not the barely grown girl she still feels like. All right, you're not ready for this. I know. I thought you were a little tougher, but I apologize for overwhelming you, he says with a slight bow. But please, the way the woods whisper to a sorcerer means a wound stays fresh unless it's been avenged. What? The dark forest thinks differently and upon a different scale than a person. As far as it is concerned, an emotional wound is the same as a physical one, and if the source of the wound is not addressed, it will likely re-emerge. So it obsesses over it, and each sorcerer is an extension of the wood, so we obsess over it as well. This is why sorcerers are so vengeful. Koga explains, and her eyes are wide at the implications. That explains a lot, she says after a minute, and he nods. Yes, so we need to find out who's actually responsible for this. Not only to help Kalstarn find some relief for what's happened to him, but also to discourage this kind of madness in the future. Kalstarn was not the only victim last night, but he's the one that brought this to our attention. Koga says then, he holds out his hand to her. After a moment, she takes it and he helps her out of her chair. Let's go. He steps into the room and out of the way for her to lead the way out. She smooths out her dress somewhat and brushes by him. A slight tap on the tiny indent in the ceiling and the door swings open. She has to look back to know that he's there. There's neither an axiom signal nor a sound from the man. She clears her throat somewhat to gain a bit more control of the situation before going to her office chair. How familiar are you with the local political affairs? Assume I am utterly ignorant and work from there. I am recording this for and will be presenting this to a traumatized child, Koga says, and she blinks before looking at him again to see that there's a small lens near where his heart is, a communicator in a pocket with a hole. Right, okay. You need to understand that while the Tyr barony is old and well regarded, we're not the wealthiest. In the older days, we were an important trading hub around the dark forest and part of several major routes. We are technically wealthier now. We all live longer and better lives since we've started wandering among the stars. The trade routes are gone, and compared to many of our neighbors, we're outright impoverished, Baroness Tyr says, and Koga nods. Sensible. Please continue. Well, we're near a major part of the dark forest. We've had sorcerers before. It's why I'm so aware of how bad it is to have a sorcerer angry at you. She says, a bit of her confidence returning now that she knows for a fact the sorcerer isn't angry at her. She brings up a map to show the local area. Her ancestral manor is located in the mountains and looks down into the valleys below, a strip of land abruptly cut off by the dark forest. If it could be claimed or ruled in any capacity, then the area of her barony would easily be 5 times its current size. However, having an utterly impenetrable border and a high chance that anyone attacking will eventually be slaughtered for their hubris was easily worth any amount of simple dirt to reign over. The cost for such defenses was well beyond what that amount of land could give them in the form of profits. Anyways, there are 3 provinces that surround mine. and beyond that are another 8 further out. We're a small but proud people. We have little in the way of military power. The threat of some future retaliation from a sorcerer has often been enough to avert invasions and raids. Tyr explains, bringing up a map that shows the dark forest to the immediate west of her barony. Opposite is the Kur Duchy. North of her family's rivals are the Raz Duchy, and south is the Hleth Barony. Both of them also touch the dark forest and have been generally peaceful. Why are raids and invasions still happening in the modern day? It seems a little savage for a space-age people, Koga asks, and she gives him an odd look. So you're a Tret then? Not a human? She asks, and he raises an eyebrow at her. Only a Tret wouldn't get it. We're quarrelsome, aggressive, and competitive. It brings out both the best and the worst in the Apuk peoples. Think of it more like the hopes that a people would conquer their inner nature, somehow defeat the beast within and just be something civilized. He notes before sighing. But that is just a naive hope, I assume. You can't truly defeat your inner nature. The beast is always there. Without it, you simply cease to be. So what's the actual question? Why are raids still a thing? This clearly wasn't for resources, wealth, or slaves. This was a very badly done smear job, almost deliberately so, but you just don't have the resources to source that kind of hardware and use a bad smear to smear your political rivals by implication. Koga mutters. Your mind just went down a route that left me utterly baffled, Tyr says. Imagine someone committing a crime and then very obviously implanting evidence it was them, but only in a way that is easily disproven as implanted evidence. This can get real evidence thrown out along with the clearly false evidence and have the actual legal system clear their trail for them, Koga explains before adjusting his glasses. It's usually a sign that we're dealing with a mastermind in some method. Still, you're not the type. How am I not the type? She asks a little tartly. You fainted. You didn't have an excuse ready, you didn't stay in control. You were suddenly helpless in front of an unknown sorcerer. That's not something a mastermind would ever be comfortable doing. I could have faked it to earn your trust, she says, and he snorts. You don't even know what I did to check, do you? He asks her and her mind races. What did he do? What did he do? See? You didn't fake. What did you do? She demands him. Basic medical check before moving you carefully into your private sanctum to recover. But the fact you just outright panicked tells me there's no way you faked it, Koga remarks as he brings out his communicator and makes sure it gets a good look at the map. Still, we have a starting point and we're going to keep pressing until we find our guilty party. After that, well, I hope their heir is well and truly ready to take over their duties. What are you going to do? Tyr asks. Me? Likely just sneaking around and collecting information. The sorcerers as a whole? We're going to find who's responsible, hog-tie them helpless and dump them in the woods for little Kalstarn to do whatever he wants to them. He's one of us now, and he needs to make those who hurt him and everything he loves so badly to get exactly what's coming to them. And if it's a high-ranking noble woman, if she has someone that will avenge her, Tyr asks, dreading the most likely answer. Koga smiles. If they want to play the game of who can bring about the worst vengeance with sorcerers, then they're free to play. But they best remember that we're very, very hard to counter without a large number of battle princesses, and it's the Empress that controls them. Either that or orbital bombardment, but again, that's the kind of thing that brings the Empress in on these affairs and likely in a very unhappy mood. Putting someone between sorcerers and the Empress is a very, very mean thing to do. Tyr cannot help but comment, and Koga chuckles. They did it to themselves when they sent children screaming and weeping into the night.